Hi, everybody. What's up? I'm DJ Sixsmith. Welcome to Sit Down. Wesley Lowery here with us, 60 and 6 on Qubi, our CBS News colleague. Wesley, what's up, man? How are you?
Not too much. I'm doing all right. Staying inside, trying to get a little rest, but it's been a crazy news summer.
It has been a crazy year. It has been just an unreal summer. And the last time that we talked, we were talking about you going to Minnesota, covering George Floyd. And unfortunately, we're in a similar situation here with the news about Jacob Blake and the video of him being shot 7 times by police. When did you first hear about his story, and just walk us through your whole process in covering this story?
Sure. So I remember, and I get some of these days wrong, but the shooting happened, I want to say on a Saturday, and the video came out not long afterwards. And so I remember seeing the viral video pretty quickly, right? And you could tell from the video, this is going to be something that people are upset about. No matter what happened in the interaction, the video kind of clearly shows the officer shooting multiple times into Jacob Blake's back. And so people were going to be upset about this. That night, just watching the reaction in Kenosha, in Wisconsin, big crowds, clashes with police, a round of rioting, it was clear there was a big story kind of on the horizon. Now, all this is playing out with the backdrop of a big march on Washington that was planned and happening. George Floyd's family, along with the Reverend Al Sharpton, Attorney Ben Crump, they were doing a big march on the anniversary of the March on Washington around these issues. And this is now the week leading into that. We have another city, another hashtag, another video. And so we had already been thinking, if there's a smart way to get back at these issues around the march, and then the shooting of Jacob Blake just kind of, forced our hand a little bit. And so the team got in an airplane to Wisconsin and spent some time on the ground.
So what was it like for you and the team being in Kenosha? Because it's similar circumstances in some ways and really different circumstances in other ways. What stood out to you the most about your time in Wisconsin?
Sure. I've spent a lot of time on the ground in a lot of different cities around unrest, protest, police violence. And each city is a little bit different, right? A lot of the things are the same in terms of the ebb and flow and the police response and the protest gathering. But one thing that's unique and different in each place is the local history, right? Each place is a little bit different. They have their own set of anecdotes and things that come from their history that help bring them to this moment. They have their own unique geographic context, right? So Kenosha, for folks who aren't aware, is kind of in southeast Wisconsin. It's between Chicago and Milwaukee. And it's kind of one of those towns that used to be a big auto manufacturing town. A lot of those factories closed down. And so you get a lot of people who are trapped in relative poverty or working poor, right? And it's a primarily white area with a significant minority population and with some significant income disparities there, where you have kind of a set of poor Black and brown people who feel kind of trapped, and then a richer set of white neighbors. And so those dynamics start to play out in ways that look different than a Baltimore or Ferguson or an LA, or so each city, things are just a little bit different. When we first got on the ground there, the first person we wanted to go after was Raysean White. He was the witness, a 22-year-old man who took the video of Jacob Blake being shot and killed. And having done so many of these stories, I'm always really interested in looking at the people who are caught up in them, right? He's not a participant. This had nothing to do with him. He's a guy who sticks his head out the window, sees something happening, and hits record. And suddenly he's thrust into it. And so we did one of his first, if not his first, on-camera interview discussing why he recorded that video and also what it had been like for him in the time since.
It's really incredible just how impactful the video is. We obviously saw it with Jacob Blake, with George Floyd. The lack of video for Breonna Taylor has made a difference in a lot of the conversations. When you talk to Raysean, what did you learn about him? Because really all that we know in a lot of ways is that he was just there and happened to witness what has become a national story. So what is he like, and what did you learn about him?
Yeah, no, he seemed like a really great guy. We spent a fair chunk of time together, both on camera and off camera. 22, grew up in Chicago, had spent some time in Kenosha. His father had moved out to Kenosha when he was younger, so he kind of split his time between Kenosha and Chicago. And was kind of in the apartment he shares with his girlfriend directly across the street, right? Didn't really know Jacob Blake, but he'd see him outside. This is kind of a residential neighborhood, so he'd see Jacob out there grilling or, in and out talking to folks. But, for him, this has been really difficult. It's been really tough. He feels a responsibility when he sees the protest, when he sees businesses being burned down, well, the shootings that have happened since, with Kyle Rittenhouse coming in and shooting three of the protesters, killing two of them. Raysean is sitting at his house watching all this, and he's thinking in the back of his head, what if I had just never uploaded the video? What if this is about me? And so he has this fight internally about whether or not he did the right thing, if he did what he's supposed to do, if he should do something else. And so it is really interesting and really fascinating the toll that being involved in these cases can take on someone.
That's one of the things we don't necessarily talk enough about, is whether or not somebody actually uploads the video and how that impacts them as a person. Because if there's no video, this is an entirely different conversation. I hate to say that.
And we wouldn't even be talking about it. There's no way this case would have risen to that level had it not been for the video.
No doubt about it. You got the chance to talk to Jacob Blake's family as well, and you spent time with George Floyd's family, and here we are with another family, different set of circumstances. What was it like just getting to the bottom of their family story and just dealing with them in a really vulnerable moment?
Of course. You know, it's always a privilege when families who are in a news story like this are willing to take time and talk with you, because you know they're going through it. You know, it's difficult. It's among the worst times of their lives. You know, Jacob Blake's uncle, fascinating guy, fascinating character. And the one thing he said was that he, you know, in many ways, the family's very happy. And what he means by that is that most of the people who are caught in these viral videos don't live. And Jacob Blake is still alive. He's facing some pretty serious medical ramifications, you know, currently paralyzed from the waist down, unclear if he'll ever regain the ability to walk. But the family said first and foremost, they're excited that he's still alive, right? But beyond that, you know, I think the family is really trying to take advantage of this momentum in this moment. This is in many ways a family of activists. Their grandfather was a pretty prominent pastor. Many of the aunts and uncles and folks are kind of civically involved. And so it's people who really want to take the energy of the streets and use it to propel some type of change. And so they're really working on that and talking about it. And they've been holding rallies and protests and demonstrations, community events in Kenosha, as well as they went out to join the Floyd family in DC for the March on Washington. And so, like I said, it's just kind of, it's fascinating to see how these different families respond differently in these moments.
You make a great point, because the fact that he's still alive, his physical presence is a daily reminder of what happened in Kenosha. And it's different than a memorial for George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor. How do you think the story goes from here? What should we make of how things will play out in the next weeks, months, et cetera?
Sure. You know, in the coming weeks, it's going to be fascinating to see if we see another video, or when we see another video. We know eventually there will be one, unfortunately. We're still waiting for the answer on what happens to the officers involved in the Breonna Taylor case in Louisville. And I think that's going to be a big moment one way or the other. You know, her case has really been one that has caught fire nationally in terms of people paying attention, people lifting her name up, and they're still pending a decision about whether or not to charge these officers. And I think that depending on which way that goes, I think that could prompt massive response, not just in Louisville, but across the country. So those are some of the things I'm watching closely. You know, we never know when exactly the next video is going to drop, the next time we're going to see something like this, but we know we will, because policing is big and complicated and messy. Efforts at reform are big and complicated and messy. And we know that even with all of this energy in this moment, it's not as if American policing has been fundamentally changed in any way, right? And so unfortunately, that means we're very likely to be back here again sometime probably sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's not if, it's when with this conversation, unfortunately. And I mean, this year is a testament to that. So just for you personally, I mean, covering all this, we're processing it all in real time. What has it been like for you to not only be a professional, but just a human being in all this, and dealing with the people and watching the videos? Because it's a lot every single day to think about it, talk about it, and it's a whole other thing to cover it as well.
Yeah, no, it's a ton, you know, and it's heavy. It's not fun watching these videos. It's not, you know, there's a lot of responsibility in maintaining these relationships with these family members, with these witnesses. You know, these stories are so charged. You don't want to get anything wrong. You don't want to be out over your skis. You don't want to word something in a way that's inflammatory, right? And so there's just a ton of different, you know, pressures as it relates to kind of covering stories like this. And on top of that, you're watching on video people who look like you losing their lives very often. And so I think that's really, it weighs pretty heavily. You know, unfortunately, it's something that I've gotten a lot of practice at. And so I've been able to kind of figure out some of the ebb and flow of how to navigate that space and what to do with it. But it is really tough. You know, it's really tough for everyone to watch these videos over and over and over again. It's both the beauty and the miserableness of cell phones and social media is that we can see everything. And we can see a lot of things we might not have seen before. And that doesn't necessarily mean those things are going to be good.
When we reflect on this story months down the road, years down the road, what should we think about the most with Jacob Blake and the Kenosha officers here?
I think that this is going to be a really interesting case. I think for a lot of people, there's still at times this belief or this suggestion that these are only big city problems, right? These are things that happen in LA or Chicago or Baltimore, St. Louis, right? And Kenosha is about as small town USA as it gets, right? Now there are smaller, more rural places, but it's kind of a small working class Midwestern industrial, small town city, right? And yeah, there were big issues here. And so I think that's part of what we've seen play out place after place after place is these reminders that what we're seeing on the news could also be happening outside of our house, no matter where it is we're based.
Wesley, you do tremendous work. Everybody can catch it 60 and 6 on Qubi. Thanks so much, man. Be safe, and we'll talk to you down the road, all right?
Of course. Talk to you soon.